In 2010, we got Epic Mickey, a brand new game revolving around older aspects of Disney history, with levels taking the form of 2D platformers based around old Mickey Mouse cartoons. It was relatively well received when it came out, and it enjoyed relative success before a sequel to the game was cancelled prematurely, and the game series was forgotten by Disney. But all the way back in 1992, gamers got Mickey Mania, a brand new game revolving around the older aspects of Disney history, with levels taking the form of 2D platformers based on old Mickey Mouse cartoons. It was relatively well received when it came out, and it enjoyed relative success before a sequel to the game was cancelled prematurely, and the game was forgotten by Disney.
Speaking of forgotten Disney games, if you want videos about a very specific forgotten Disney game in your inbox every week, subscribe. Thank you all.
With a character with a history as rich as Mickey Mouse, there's going to be a ton of different media revisiting the past. A more recent example is Steamboat Silly, the last short in the Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse series, which brought back the original Steamboat Willie design of Mickey, along with a ton of references to other eras of Mickey history. But the world of gaming has more than one example of going through history, which is kinda odd, considering how few mainline Mickey-centric console games there are. Aside from the Epic Mickey series, the only original Mickey Mouse console games to be released in the last 20 or so years is Disney's Magical Mirror starring Mickey Mouse for the Nintendo GameCube and Disney Illusion Island, as well as a bunch of shovelware sports and kart racing games. Mickey Mania, The Timeless Adventures of Mickey Mouse, was developed by Traveller's Tales, later known as TT Games. Yeah, the one that makes all those LEGO games. They also made Mickey Mania. The initial idea for Mickey Mania was envisioned by David Jaffe, who would later go on to direct God of War. The idea of Mickey going back in time was originally conceptualized for Mickey's 65th birthday in 1993, which apparently would have given Traveller's Tales 6 months to create the game from start to finish. So that idea was quite quickly scrapped in favour of releasing the game the following year in 1994. As development started on the game, the Mickey Mania team had to choose which Mickey cartoons would make good levels. In the end, they chose Steamboat Willie, The Mad Doctor, Moose Hunters, Lonesome Ghosts, Mickey and the Beanstalk, and The Prince of the Papa. There was also a hidden level in the form of the band concert, which was on all versions except the SNES. Being a Disney game, of course you would want the visuals and animation to be on par with Disney quality. As a result, all the character animations in Mickey Mania were created by hand in the Disney studio, just like an original Mickey Mouse cartoon. The hand-drawn animation was then scanned into a computer, colorized and pixelized to put it into the game. The game was eventually released in October of 1994 in Europe and North America, and March 1995 in Japan. The game was positively reviewed by gaming magazines at the time, most of them praising the game's visuals and charm, but most critics agreed that the game was really far too easy to really get into unless you were already a Mickey fan. Another criticism was that the projectiles in the game were limited to the amount you picked up during levels, meaning you could run out of them whilst targeting an enemy, leaving you with little choice but to take damage. A specific criticism to the SNES is that loading screens were often very long and tedious, as they happened whenever you progress levels or die, and this was back when loading screens weren't very common in games, and were often very short if they were even needed. In fact, the SNES and Mega Drive versions of Mickey Mania had lots of differences, some big, some small. The biggest difference is that the SNES version is missing 2 levels, being the band concert secret level, and a tale sequence in the Mad Doctor level. It's a last mission which is the most unusual, as a similar tale sequence is still included in a later level, meaning there wasn't a technical reason why the SNES disincluded this level. Some smaller changes are that the SNES is missing certain sound effects, like the one that plays during the title card for each level. The Mega Drive version missing certain backgrounds, and the SNES lacks a film reel filter with the sidebars that's in the Mega Drive version. Another honourable mention is that in the second level, the Mad Doctor, there are skeletons that throw bones at Mickey. The SNES had the ability to add many more sprites, so when the game was ported from Mega Drive to SNES, a lot more bones were added to show off the SNES's power. This ultimately ended in the game being very hard to do, especially in the levels where there wasn't much room to dodge attacks, like the elevator sequence in the Mad Doctor. Technically, I personally think the game is very impressive for a 16-bit game. There are two 3D type segments, which are really cleverly done. The animations are also very smooth, which makes sense considering how they were made. Mickey Mania was also released for the Sega CD, or the Mega CD here in Oz. It obviously sounds much better than the Mega Drive one, with lots of new voice lines and sound effects, although visually it looks pretty much the same. This version is also pretty hard to find, since the Mega CD wasn't exactly a bestseller. This version could almost be considered a definitive edition, if it weren't for just one more thing. 2 years after Mickey Mania's initial release, a remake of sorts was produced. I say of sorts because it sort of is and sort of isn't. This version was for the PlayStation, released in March of 1996. For whatever reason, this version of the game is also renamed to Mickey's Wild Adventure. I guess Sony was either trying to trick parents into buying the game twice, or Mickey Mania just didn't hit the same in 1996. The game is a massive enhancement from the Sega CD version, including much more details in the backgrounds and shading on the character sprites. It does somewhat lose the immersion of being in a cartoon, since the graphics in the 3D sections are more realistic than they would have been in an old Mickey Mouse cartoon. But it's still more graphically epic than the 16-bit versions. Mickey Mania also had a sequel in development in 1995, with them getting so far as to create a level for the cartoon Two Gun Mickey. The game was ultimately scrapped in favour of the Toy Story game. The founder of Traveller's Tales, John Burton, has a YouTube channel where he revealed the prototype. He also has different videos on how different effects in Mickey Mania were achieved, and a series of him playing through the game. I'll put a link to his YouTube channel in the description, and I recommend that you check him out. Mickey Mania is a game which I think would be really good as a remake, especially if it was done similar to Cuphead, which looked exactly the same as a 1930s cartoon. Especially so since the animation was done by Disney animators. But it doesn't really look like a remake would even be a possibility, since this game doesn't really have that big of a fan base, unlike Epic Mickey, which at least had a large enough demand to warrant a remake. But then again, just up until recently, I thought it'd be impossible for an Epic Mickey remake to happen, so I guess you never know. Epic Mickey and Mickey Mania are definitely very similar in many different ways, so a remake wouldn't be entirely out of the picture, especially considering how easy it would be to remake Mickey Mania in the Epic Mickey universe. Hey Disney, if you like what you hear, just call me. Another week, another video. How'd you guys like that one? I might have live streamed on Monday, I'm not sure because I haven't recorded it. It's not Monday yet. But if I haven't, then I might do it next week. I recorded this early, so I might live stream on Monday. I just want to see how many viewers I could get on it. But anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you next week.